But how are you doing? How is it over in Florida, and what have you been up to over the past 6-7 weeks or so?
Well, I'm pleased to say that Florida seems to have been less affected than the UK, so our numbers are a little lower down here. So we're actually starting to come out of the sort of safer at home policy that we had. We started phase 1, so restaurants have opened on Monday with social distancing and reduced capacity, but elective surgeries and hospitals are reopening for things that aren't COVID related, and beaches and parks, etc., are all open. So they're starting to come out the other side, as it were, and they're working a lot of the data, and they're working through the data and seeing that they can cope with a lot of the potential of any sort of second wave, etc. So that's positive, and what I've been doing, well, to be honest, I've probably been a lot busier, since this started than not. A lot of time on Zoom. Normally we would do one budget at this time of year, but now we're doing like 3 or 4 different budgets and running through the different models and the different scenarios of what could happen and what couldn't happen, and also the club's been incredibly busy in the community and really, showing what a bright light it is within the community, with all the work that Gareth and the team are doing and the community trust are doing within the community, talking to people, supporting people, and then just keeping spirits up within the club.
Yeah, we'll talk about that community work a bit later on. It is really important, and you've been doing some great work. Let's talk about the football then. Rick Parry just kind of emphasising today that the 31st of July is really when the season has to be finished. We're obviously ticking towards that date. Is it looking unlikely now that the League Two season in particular will finish?
I think Rick said it in his gave some dates, and Rick's been working really hard with all the Football League in the background, and with our support, because it's a really tough, difficult decisions to be made. I think it's hard to say without the government feedback from this week, and I think we have to be careful that we don't speculate too much, and we don't set stories going that all this is going to happen and that is going to happen. What we've got to do is we've got to be patient, wait for the government feedback, and then look at the options in front of us. I think as time ticks by, it becomes harder and harder to get the season completed in any way, shape or form. I think it becomes a challenge. I think we've got to get players back in training for that to happen, and can we do that in a safe way? That's still a question, I think, in my eyes. So we have to look at health and safety first, and I will always take that approach. From our perspective as a football club, the good thing is that I spoke to all the players yesterday and the senior group of players on Friday, and they're willing to get going as quickly as possible once restrictions have been lifted. They feel that they've got a job to do, and they feel like they want to get on with it and finish the season. And we're still in that mindset. Our mindset is we want to finish the season, but we need to make sure we do it in the safest way possible.
As you mentioned, it's the uncertainty which is the real killer, isn't it? You said you've probably drafted up 3 or 4 budgets. It makes logical sense for kind of the EFL to wait for the latest government guidance to make a decision, but as the wait goes on, the time ticks by, and obviously players as well. It comes back to that contract situation, doesn't it, where players, the closer we get towards the end of May and then June, they'll have to start thinking about their own futures and how that works as well.
Absolutely. We've made a commitment to the players this week that we'll, because some of the players are out of contract, and by the end of this month they would have known whether they would be being retained or not being retained. So we have made a commitment to players, and we will let them know as soon as we get some guidance about what's happening with the season. And I think they're very appreciative of the communication that we've given them, and we've been in regular contact with the players about that and about all the issues that we as a club face and they are going to face as individuals and players with the club or without the club. So I think I would hope over the next week, I know Rick said in a few days, I would hope after Sunday with the Prime Minister's address to the nation, I hope we'll have a much better idea by next week of where we're at, and we can start making some decisions based on those matters. It's a very tough time. It's a challenging time for players because they're not allowed to do what they do for a living. They're not allowed to do what they want to do in terms of getting back to playing football. And some of them have got don't have any work or income coming in after July 31st. So and then looking for a new contract at a time when clubs don't even know what's going on. So it's a tough time, but we're trying to support them through it. And but it's a tough time for everybody in the country. So I think everybody's in the same boat, and we just got to try and get through it together.
You mentioned safety earlier, of course, when discussing if the season will restart, and we're obviously always talking hypotheticals in these interviews because we've never seen this before. And we're not exactly sure what's going to happen, but it seems pretty unquestionable that if football was to return, it would be behind closed doors. And there's been some reports as well saying that this could extend to the start of next season as well. How damaging would that be for the club?
I think we have to be slightly wary of media reports at this time in terms of we have to make sure that we focus on the facts that are coming out, etc., and we don't want to get too carried away with speculation. But the reality is the majority of our income outside of the Football League and Premier League money is in regards to fans coming through the door and having fans in the ground, and we appreciate that, and that's why we do so much work around that, and then encouraging season tickets and encouraging fans into the club and welcoming fans into the club, and it will have a financial impact. There's no question about it, and that's why the conversation around streaming, the conversation around what we can do with iFollow has become very detailed over the last sort of month in terms of from the Football League perspective, and also from within the club with James and the team, just seeing how that will impact us and what we can do with that in terms of mitigating some of that financial impact if we are behind closed doors.
And you mentioned, of course, season tickets, which are a vital part of the club's income. It would be around this time, wouldn't it, that fans will be looking to renew? And I'm sure some fans, as a kind of statement of support, will still want to renew their season tickets, but difficult to assess when you can put them on sale. What kind of discussions have you had with those?
We've been overwhelmed actually by the level of support from fans in terms of what we've received in terms of, and not just about next year's season tickets, but also about this year's season tickets. Because if the season we don't finish the games, there's I'd say the vast majority. And I'm not even sure we've had that many that have said they would want a refund, but the vast majority have said they wouldn't be looking for a refund, which is very much appreciated at a time where we would be losing income as well. You wouldn't necessarily want to have to then lose even more income from refunds of the season tickets. But we've built budgets around what we hope to happen, and then we've also built budgets on what could happen in the worst case situation. So we're prepared for both. But the response from fans has been utterly overwhelming, and even received an email this morning, which on top of a bunch of other emails asking when season tickets were going on sale because they want to buy one to support the club. So our view right now is we still need to be patient, and we still need to not rush into anything in terms of putting season tickets on sale. Of course, it's a big cash flow hole that myself, David, and the board are going to have to cover, which we've no issue with. And with some of the other government help, that's definitely helped us in that. But it will have a financial impact, but we're not going to rush. We think we've got to wait until we know what's going to happen this season, and then have a better idea of where we're going to be next season in terms of what we're selling, whether we're selling a just a regular season ticket because football's going to get back to normal, or we're selling maybe it's a combined iFollow season ticket that potentially, give people access to both iFollow home games and home games once the season resumes with fans coming through the door. So yeah, we're working up every option, every possibility. We absolutely appreciate all the support the fans have shown for the club, and we'll be working through the models as we go on over the next sort of week or so as more information comes to light.
And just a final one for me, Kelvin. You mentioned at the top of this interview, and it's seen across social media consistently, of course, the work the club are doing in the community, and Keith Curl giving some birthday phone calls to some very loyal season ticket holders, an 86-year-old man the other day. And I know yourself and the players have also been part of these calls. We've spoken about it before, but it is so integral to these supporters, especially now as lockdown kind of drags on and people get more and more frustrated with the situation.
Yeah, I think, again, I spoke to all the players on Zoom on yesterday, and all the staff. In fact, we as a staff, we all sung happy birthday to young Adam, our kit man, because it was his birthday yesterday. So, those are some of the positive aspects of what we've, what this has brought out in people, is that community spirit and the willingness to help, and then the communication. You don't often get together as a full staff, because during the season it's very busy, and it's actually quite nice to jump on a Zoom call with everybody and communicate that way. And I did say thank you to the players, and I thanked all the staff for all the hard work that they're doing in the community, and it really has. I think the reaction and the feedback I've received is it really has cemented our place in the community as a community club, and being a very important part of that community, and it does make you proud when you hear these calls and you see these calls and you make the calls yourself, and you see the players being really engaging with the fans and supporters that need help at this time. So, I can only say thanks to everyone that's involved, and really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kelvin. That's all from me.
All right. Cheers.
Hi, Kelvin. Just looking a bit further ahead, there's been a bit of talk about football potentially needing a reset, and radical changes might need to come in. Stuff like restrictions on squad sizes, and I think there was a letter signed by 37 of the League 1 and 2 clubs about potentially bringing in salary caps. Where do you stand? Where did the club stand on that situation?
To be honest, we're very much in favour of some more radical thinking in terms of changes for football and what needs to happen. Reset is the buzzword right now within football. We need to make sure that, and not just use this opportunity. COVID's probably focused a lot more minds. I think there's been discussions for a while about football needing to change how it does business and its business model. But I think COVID has definitely focused minds on what needs to happen, and we need to. And I think I've said this before, but we need, as an industry, we need to make sure that we are less owner financed as businesses and as football clubs. We need to give ourselves more opportunity to have retained earnings, so that we can cope with things like COVID or other things that happen. We need to make sure we keep an eye on competitive balance within the leagues, and ensure that we do have a competitive balance. I think it's something that maybe the Premier League has lost its way slightly in the last few years in terms of some of the money that's come into the clubs, and whereas League Two has a better competitive balance at times, because nobody knows exactly who's going to win games and who's going to win titles and promotions, etc. The Premier League tends to have a bit more of a known quantity about who's going to who's going to win games. But overall, those are all the things that need to be looked at, and ways to deal with that are salary caps, squad sizes, and control of spending on player expenses. Obviously, our biggest expense is our player expenses in any football club, and we need to have some level of control so that football clubs don't put themselves in jeopardy and can deal with these kind of situations better. It's not just on year on year. We talk about financial sustainability, but financial sustainability isn't just breaking even year on year and surviving. We need to give ourselves a chance for retained earnings so that we have money in the bank so that we can deal with these kind of crises better.
Yeah, I just wanted to also ask on the loan players. You've obviously got a few at Northampton. I know Peterborough have an agreement in place to keep their loan players until the season ends, if it does end. Do you have an agreement in place for the players at Northampton at the moment?
Yeah, we're talking to all the clubs individually, and I think loan players will be an interesting focus next season as we try and survive COVID and get through this crisis from a financial perspective. We had the loan players were on the call yesterday, so they're all engaged. They all want to play, and I think their clubs will want them to play. So and all the agreements are different in terms of some of them till the end of the season anyway. Some of them are a fixed date, but we're comfortable and confident that all our loan players will be retained if the season completes.
So do you think, with the fact that there's going to be reduced costs going forward, that loan players might actually become more important going forward?
I think there's going to be some sort of... I think the loan player market has got a little bit out of control in itself, and therefore I think there will be a reset in terms of the loan player market. Whereas previously, in years before, you paid a percentage of wages, and we've still tried to stick to that. But there's also some clubs and Premier League clubs that look for loan fees and things like that. So that dynamic has changed somewhat. So I think there will be to use the buzzword, a reset of the loan market anyway. Whether they'll become more important, I don't know, and it's going to depend on the individual clubs, etc. We've tried to use it sparingly. We tend to use it more in January because it's harder to find players to sign. But I think young Callum and has showed us that if he's right, it can be very beneficial.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.